Your number one success tip is to have compassion for themselves.
Yeah, because that inner criticism, like if you're your biggest bully, how are you showing up for yourself, for others? Whereas if you're your biggest cheerleader and being like, I got this, and like celebrate just the little wins, that mindset piece is so critical. And learning to be the thermostat and not the thermometer in your life, right? You choose how you
Ooh.
decide to show up each day and you choose to be the best version of you. And like other things are going to happen, yes, but be like, that's okay. It's just how it's flowing today.
Welcome to Successful with ADHD. I'm Brooke Schnittman, and if you have ADHD and are feeling overwhelmed, chaotic, and negative self-beliefs, you're in the right place. The Successful with ADHD podcast shares my guests' journeys of overcoming challenges, offering their tips and strategies for success to empower you to take control of your life and thrive with ADHD. Let's get started.
Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Claudia Von Boeselager, and she's a peak performance and longevity coach and serial entrepreneur, passionate about helping people reach their next level from life and business optimization to increasing health span for longer. And so wonderful. Claudia's on a mission to help 1 billion people optimize their lives and reach their fullest potential. And she's done 10 plus years of research, countless interviews with global pioneers, and she's uncovered the key strategies and tools to live in a peak state and to have a biological age 15 years younger than her chronological age. Come on, Claudia, share your secrets.
It's such a pleasure to be on today, Brooke. Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted, and yes, I'm happy to share some of the tools that I've done used to do that, which are very helpful for ADHDers as well. So, yeah, pleasure to be here.
Yes, and I'm sure our audience cannot wait for you to share that. So I'm 39 now, 15 years younger would make me 24. I'm okay
So I'm
with that.
26. Yeah, I'm 26, and my goal is actually to be biologically 20 and keep it that way till I'm 150 chronologically. So we'll
Okay,
do that and
okay.
have lots of fun along the way because it's about increasing health span, right? So yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. So you are not officially diagnosed with ADHD, correct?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what got you to think that you, in fact, do have it because you're self-diagnosed?
Exactly. So I'd say about a year and a half ago, my daughter, now 9, I could tell like if I sat with her, did certain things with her, she could really, focus and do that if there was that inspiration. But like if music came on or something, she'd have to get up and dance, do different things as well. And I was noticing around her schoolwork and spoke to a doctor about it. And she's like, you should have her diagnosed or, assessed basically. And so in that journey of researching around her, and I'm looking at things and I was like, oh, tick the box, oh, tick the box. And I was like, okay, this is quite obvious as well. So yes, she got her diagnosis. I think just purely from the timing perspective, I haven't got an official diagnosis yet. At some point, I may or may not. But for me, obviously, it's like what you do with the diagnosis, right? So thereafter, I think for some people who maybe have no idea about it is a big thing to get that diagnosis, and everyone's obviously different. I think for me it's like it's quite obvious, and I know what I can do to manage it better so that I can be at my best, and I know when things are being triggered or whatever, and what causes are, not always but a lot of the time, and to be a bit kinder to myself around it as well. So yeah, that's brought me on that journey.
Okay, so since you seem to hack a lot of things to help you manage your ADHD, given the fact that you don't have an ADHD diagnosis from a medical professional, I'm guessing you're not on medication for ADHD.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you right now feel like behaviorally you haven't managed the way that you want to. Is that correct?
No, so I sorry if I implied that before. What I meant
No, I
is
assumed.
oh, okay. So what I have or what I do are certain routines, some, best practice strategies that allow me to thrive, if you will,
Hmm.
in my shape or form of doing that, that allow me to thrive and not go down some of the rabbit hole issues of, ADHD as well. And obviously everyone with ADHD has different symptoms and different things as well. But I have managed very well without medication.
Wonderful. So when did you start learning about those tools? Was it after your daughter's official diagnosis or before?
Well before, just because of my interest around health optimization, life optimization, and noticing. So, looking back now, at the journey, as a child in school, like the struggling to have, attention the whole time and focus and getting easily distracted. But, I was reflecting on it as well. If we, take a step back, that I had such a drive of motivation to do really well that like superseded my attention deficit, right? And so I really
Sure.
was able to bring it back and, went on to do 3 masters and learn 4 languages. I just like obviously, over the top, couldn't get
Degree
enough for
overload,
me.
right?
Yeah. Totally. But anyway, and so looking back, how I used to study, right? I used to write copious notes. So I would literally be listening to the professor, the teacher, whatever, and I'd be writing notes, notes, notes as a form of like part of the brain is distracted because I'm actually doing something while I'm listening instead of just sitting there listening. And I obviously would zone out and be
Sure.
thinking about 10,000 other things as well.
So it also probably means you are a visual learner
Correct.
rather than an auditory. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. And, going back, circling, having a highlighter, like I'm such a nerd, right? So different highlighter
So you
colors
didn't
for different
highlight the
things.
entire notes?
Not entire, but a lot. And a lot of like, I'd
Okay.
have like probably 5 different colors. People were like, this is like the rainbow. Like, how do you learn from this? I'm like, I have instant recognition in the exam because I can remember exactly what it is. So I think all of us as humans, like we're great at finding mechanisms that work well for us. But I think the more deep dive into things started happening, sort of fast forward mid 30s, having kids, hormonal changes and
Wait,
stuff
I
as
thought
well.
you were 26.
Yeah,
Don't give it away.
biologically, but chronologically, right? So I'm
Okay.
41 chronologically now, but 26 years old as a biological age, right? So we'll focus on the 26, of course, but
Fair.
hypothetically speaking, as a 35-year-old, right? No, but with hormonal changes and stuff with kids, is when obviously symptoms can be really triggered, right? And so that's when I really started taking it more seriously in terms of what can I be doing and testing. So it went from researching and just playing around with a few things before then to actually like coming up with protocols and trying different things. Some people call it biohacking, some people just, trying different tools and strategies that would work really well for me. And I'm super happy to share sort of, top 10, if you will, that I
Please.
found really, really helpful. Yeah. So one, and it seems super obvious, is getting enough sleep. And everyone's like, oh yeah, I need to sleep. But it's like
Yes.
understanding how fundamental this piece is, right? We
It
spend
all starts and ends with sleep.
It's so important. I mean, what goes on, the processes in the body. We have this beautiful system that like cleans us, detoxes us overnight if we give it enough proper sleep and we have that sleep rejuvenation that's happening. And so, we need to be looking at getting those 7 to 8 hours of sleep, which means typically
Mhm.
8 to 9 hours in bed, right? So
Yes,
to
and for the
actually,
ADHD brain too, it could even be longer. Last
yeah,
week, I was
exactly.
very tired and I was averaging, I would say, maybe 5 to 6 hours of sleep per night, and my husband says, "I don't understand why you're so tired." I'm like, "Okay, you might be okay with the 4 hours of sleep
Yeah,
a night, but I need 9.
yeah,
I've always needed at least 9." So,
yeah.
yes, to your point.
And then the ADHD brain kicks in over an overdrive, right? When we're not getting enough sleep and the emotional roller coaster and like all these other knock-on effects, like we are not our best selves, right?
Mhm,
Cognition, mood, et cetera, et cetera. And part of that is understanding sleep hygiene, right? So that
mhm,
bedtime routines, like what is needed to get quality sleep, like no blue light near bedtime, right? Like those screens and things like that. Put on the yellow light or ideally no screens. Sleeping in a cool room. It should be dark.
mhm,
Be aware of like EMF radiation, electromagnetic field radiation. So having all devices on near your head at night, that's a lot of radiation that's just seeping into your brain and affecting your
mhm.
brain as well. Put it on airplane mode, right? And
Smart.
then, if you like hard data, which I love, right? I'm a bit of a nerd, right? Numbers person as well. There's sleep trackers that you can use to really understand what's going on. And so
You
when
have
I
the
was
ring?
I've got the Aura Ring. I have an Apple Watch, but I charge it overnight. I get enough data from the ring. And once I started understanding what was happening, it really helped me to understand like sleep cycles. And for a while, I was optimizing my sleep and actually realizing that I was waking up in during the night. I didn't know what was going on. And it was because I was intermittent fasting, thinking that was really healthy for me. But for women, actually, just word of caution around that. and it was causing a hypoglycemia, so low blood sugar levels during the night, which I solved with having some almond butter near bedtime. So understanding yourself, and with personalized medicine these days, it's really exciting actually what you can find. So that's around that sleep piece and really taking that seriously.
Sure.
Number two, again, kind of obvious, but nutrition and hydration. Our brain needs to function at its best. We need to supply it with the best nutrition. So if you even think of food as fuel, which isn't super sexy, right? But it's so important. And keeping the brain hydrated, it's 80% water, so it just needs that amount of hydration too. And I think in terms of nutrition, just to call out a few kind of important food items, if you will. So you're looking for foods like the avocados and blueberries and broccoli because of the vitamin K. Chocolate, I love chocolate, but getting that high percentage, right? 85, 90% because of the flavonoids there. Eggs are great with choline, walnuts. Also looking at what they call the smash fish is
Hmm.
great. So the sardine, mackerel, anchovy, salmon, and herring, right? So they're high in omega-3, which again are amazing for the brain as well. A lot of people are low on that omega-3s.
Especially
And
for
then,
ADHD. Yes.
yeah, yeah. And then diversifying organic vegetables as well, and green leafy vegetables for the source of vitamin E and the folate. And then for people who might be inflamed, right? Turmeric. Some people are like, oh my God, I can't eat turmeric. It doesn't taste so great, but it's a beautiful anti-inflammatory, and it also improves the brain's oxygen intake. So
Mm.
anything we can do to actually help and support the brain. And like I even put in an omelet. My kids don't like it. They don't know what's in there. So we all eat it together. And then obviously the obvious things like reducing sugar, right? We want like to maintain blood sugar levels. This is not going to help, the ups and downs our ADHD brains. There's alternatives like using organic stevia instead, right?
Before you move on from nutrition and hydration, I love chocolate.
Hmm.
Love chocolate.
Hmm.
If I was allergic to it, I don't know what I would do. In fact, I drank chocolate shakes. And one thing that I've noticed is eating chocolate before bed. Eh, Can
Hmm.
you speak to that a little bit? Because it has caffeine in it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there is that option or that danger that it will trigger that sort of wake you up during the night state. So if you have it, try to have it earlier in the day, and also because you want the health benefit from it. So like why not have chocolate, but just try to maybe have it mid-afternoon, so you have enough hours in order for it to not be causing a biochemical reaction during the night. So I'd recommend that. Yeah, yeah. I have put chocolate on and smoothies as well, but I try to use 100% cacao, and then I add the organic stevia to give the sweetness. So there are ways around it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So number three, exercise. Again, everyone's like, oh, exercise. But let me tell you two really important things about exercise. One is, and I don't know if you've talked about this before in your podcast, but with exercise, it produces BDNF, which is brain derived nootropic factor. That supports, it's essentially like a growth factor and a key molecule that's involved in plastic changes of the brain. And getting at least like 15 minutes of exercise. And what I try to do is really in the morning, first thing, to get the blood flowing through the brain and to stimulate that nootropic factor is just so fundamental. It helps also with regulating hormones like estrogen and testosterone, helping with energy levels throughout the day. The next one I want to touch on is with cold exposure. I don't know how
Oh,
familiar
yes.
your listeners are with this. For so many people, it's like, oh my goodness, cannot imagine it.
Increase that dopamine.
But that up to 500% of dopamine goes up, and also over a prolonged period, right? It's like just a game changer, super tough. At the beginning, I was literally like one arm in, the other arm in, like one leg in, like that chicken dance, right?
You suggest that people consult with a medical professional when starting cold exposure?
With anything I'm saying, definitely speak to your healthcare professional. People have different medical issues and things like that as well. The challenge I see very often is a lot of medical professionals don't have understanding or training in this. So it's always a bit of a thing. But obviously, please disclaimer, I want everyone to be safe and happy. These are general tools which will work for a lot of people, not for everybody, right? So just to be safe with that, right? If it does work for you, just even start with the 1 minute of cold water at the end of your shower, working up towards, if you live by the ocean, if you live by, if you can jump into a pool somewhere cold and just that like full plunge, you're going to
Yes.
feel amazing.
Plus, fun fact, if you started it in the shower at the end of it, it
Hmm.
closes your follicles, so you're less exposing of oils coming in and acne, and same thing
Hmm.
with your hair too. So,
Yeah, it's good for your hair as well. So from an aesthetic point of view, you're doing well.
yes.
So yeah, I love that as well. Another one is also breathing right. And so I used to very much sort of hold the ribs in and breathe with the shoulders, and really, really learning about breath and breathing, and especially nasal breathing, to make sure you're getting that beautiful, deep breaths in and that oxygen flow is super important. And there are obviously different breath work exercises that can be done to just retrain that, to strengthen the diaphragm, to do those beautiful belly breaths, right? So that Buddha belly
Yes.
kind of expands. But also, what I really encourage people to do is like posture check-ins during the day. Like, how are you sitting? If we're scrunched over like this, blood is not flowing to our brain, oxygen is not flowing to our brain, right? And so, just doing something simple like getting up, stretching, rebreathing, taking a few steps will also help with focus, attention, feeling better, feeling more energized, so that we can perform better in our day-to-day lives, and also with or without ADHD too. Number six is a regular meditation practice. And I think this is a major game changer for me. I love the way neuroscience has come into meditation and understanding what's actually happening, looking at the synchronization of brain waves through meditation, accessing different states as well. And I think people who struggle with ADHD, or even sort of more general monkey mind and always in their head,
Mhm.
that ability, and through training, through regular meditation practice, of being able to drop into that lower frequency state where you can access more creativity and intuition. Science is showing that actually the corpus callosum, which connects the left and right side of the brain, actually thickens over time. More creativity, more insight, more depth. I mean, just the benefits are so fundamental. And I think an easy way in is one of these apps like Headspace or Calm. There's like this Take 10, working up to different things. I've done the TM meditation training, which, I
Same.
mixed it up as well.
But that's really hard after a while, especially for individuals with ADHD. The transcendental meditation, it is one of the best meditations. I 100% agree. I actually did it for the first time in a while yesterday,
Mhm.
but it requires 45 minutes of your day. And who wants to sit down and meditate for 45 minutes a day?
This is it as well. I think it's finding what works. And I don't do the
Exactly.
same thing typically every day. I have a short one in the morning, and then I'll try to do something midday. And I have some biohacking tools that I use that I'll share in a moment.
I
But
also think it's important to note that you don't have to do the typical meditation. You don't have to use the apps to
Mhm.
meditate. It's just noticing your thoughts, right?
Yeah, yeah. And even so, one is the noticing the thought, and also just like focusing on the breath, whatever it is that somebody needs. But one thing, Brooke, I'll share with you, I heard from Naval Ravikant. Some people might have heard of him. He was using a Buddhist meditation teacher, a monk. And what really resonated with me, and this is for more maybe advanced meditators, is that if you do a 1 hour meditation session, which is a long time, but the golden stuff is after 40 minutes. And I've been able to do that a few times. I try to do it once a week. I don't always manage because I find a lot of time. Naval does it every single day because of the benefit.
Because that's where the transcendental piece comes in.
Yeah, and that's really, really phenomenal. And again, the more you do it, the more easier it is to access that state. So even with ADHD and that mind, you're just accessing it much quicker and faster as well. So huge fan of meditation, big game changer. I speak with a lot of these, scientists and peak performers. This is like everyone has some sort of meditation mindfulness practice. So yeah, really big piece. Taking regular movement breaks, typical ADHD, just get up, move around, make it okay to do that. Eliminating distractions, obviously very obvious. We know multitasking is not conducive to productivity. It's much better to create
Mhm.
quality material. I keep my phone on focus mode all of the day. And then when I want
Turn it
to, when I
over to
schedule the time, I go in and check the messages. I'll sometimes use, on as a Chrome extension on my browser, the Noisely, Noisli. Don't know if you know that
No.
extension. And you can put on white noise, you can put on sounds of the ocean, a train, a
Great.
fan, waterfall, whatever you like. It's actually free, which is great. They always have a upgraded version as well. And then what I'm trying to access more is this like flow state, which is obviously very difficult for people with attention deficit. But creating that environment and knowing that there are certain factors to provide for that, and then planning for other times of the day for the phone calls, for the distraction, for the email inbox, and things like that that distract us.
What is your personal flow state?
So my personal flow state, and I think this is how I interpret it, is when you access that state of bliss in terms of flow, and like time flows by and hours go by. And it's defined as sort of just outside of your comfort zone. So it needs to be a little bit challenging. You need to be well rested. You need not to be hungry. You need to be free of distractions. And then the ideas and the creativity, you're in this flow state and you don't even notice time going by. So that's
Yeah.
for me how I define
And
for
how do
me.
you get
Mhm.
into your flow state? I know we all get into our flow states differently, like water on the head in the shower, right before a nap. What are hard chargers, exercising? What's yours?
So mine is the having that morning priming routine, which includes the exercise, breath work, meditation. I do different things, visualization, setting myself up to win for the day, making sure I'm hydrated, making sure I've had a really good night's sleep. I block then the time in my schedule. I'm freeing distractions even around my desk. I literally take, except for like maybe flowers, off and away. Even like I have an external monitor. I don't want to see that because it's again triggering work, and just having that like white space, if you will, to be like, I wanted to do a brainstorm or download on this, and just making time for that. I know some people, they'll have a separate laptop that doesn't have internet connection to work on something because the temptation to like go into, let me just research that quickly or whatever, it's too high. I'd
Sure.
like to have some sort of background music on, typically either a song on repeat or a soundtrack on repeat, just so it's not mixing up too much and my brain's getting distracted as well. So yeah, those are different ways that I like to try to access that flow state.
Wonderful. And I
Mhm.
know I cut you off. You had your next tip.
We had the some other biohacks, lion's mane. I don't know if you've discussed that on your
No, we
podcast.
haven't.
Four sigmatic have one. It's like a mushroom extract, but it's really really great for focus. And you can either mix it in your coffee, you can have it as like a coffee. It has a very earthy taste to it. Red light therapy for mitochondrial support is also great. There are things called like nootropics, aka
Hmm.
smart drugs, so not necessarily smart drugs, but there's different supplements within them that help you to, focus more on if you have like a presentation or something in particular where you want to be at your best. My final one, number 10, is self care and compassion. This was a big piece also for me because I always thought that I had to be at my best all the time and it had to be perfect and perfectionist and A type and all the rest of it. And it's understanding that you're going to have really great moments and then other moments where like it just ain't happening.
Really? Yep. Just riding that wave.
Yeah. And it's just like, that's okay. I wanted to go back to that book. Like, let me take a half-hour break and let me just focus on that book, or like, let me go walk my dog, whatever it is as well. And to not beat yourself up consistently. So,
I love that. And I think that it's really important for people to understand that the more we try to be a certain way and it just isn't fitting for that day, whether
yeah.
it be you have other thoughts going on or, you haven't had that sleep that you need, you haven't had that proper nutrition, or it's just not your day. The more we
Mhm.
try to like fit into this peg hole, we are going to get stressed, anxious, and depressed. So I love the last one where you say, give yourself compassion because no one expects you to do all 10 of Claudia's tips every day. You got
No.
to figure out what works for you. And you could do the
Yeah.
meditation for a minute, you could do it for an hour.
Yeah.
It's really whatever fits into your ADHD schedule.
Yeah, exactly. And even like looking at the schedule as like a month and being like, oh, like this Monday and this Saturday, like split it out. Don't try to do it all at once, like that overwhelm effect we want to avoid, right?
Yes.
And just figure out like one or two things that you enjoy and that are fun, that you like to do. Because that's what life is about, right? We do things to try and up ourselves to be in a better place, to be happier and have more fun with things as well. So, yeah.
I love it. I love
Mhm.
it. So, would you say out of all 10 of those tools, your number one success tip is to have compassion for themselves?
I think so, yeah, because that inner criticism, like if you're your biggest bully, how are you showing up for yourself, for others? Whereas if you're your biggest cheerleader and being like, I got this, and like celebrate just the little wins, that mindset piece is so critical. and learning to be the thermostat and not the thermometer in your life, right? You choose how you
Ooh.
decide to show up each day, and you choose to be the best version of you. And like other things are going to happen, yes, but be like, that's okay. It's just how it's flowing today.
I love that. Be the thermostat, not the thermometer. So you're being proactive rather than reactive.
Correct. You set the
You set the
temperature.
tone. Yep.
Yeah.
I love that. So, Claudia, if people want to get in touch with you, what would be the best way for them to reach out to you?
We're on pretty much all social media channels. So it's longevity and lifestyle, all written out for Instagram, longevity and with the and symbol. After I founded my company, realized that and symbols are not a good idea names. Too late, but here
Oh,
we go.
well.
It's the Longevity and Lifestyle Podcast. The website is longevity-and-lifestyle.com. So yeah, please reach out. Anyone who's interested to find out more, and would be delighted to connect with you.
Wonderful. Well, I love how you're giving yourself compassion for the name with the and. I did the same thing with coaching with Brooke when we grew to 8 coaches. I said, well, not everyone is Brooke. What do we do? Do we change our name or do we just keep it because we have the brand recognition? But for all of you new entrepreneurs out there, think about that. So it's a pleasure to have you on here. And I'm sure Claudia has a lot of these tips also on her website and on Instagram. A lot of those tips also in an ADHD friendly way are on our free ebook, Coaching with Brooke /ebook. So I'm glad that we're speaking the same language here. And the lion's mane piece has been particularly new for me. So would love to hear more about that as well. Do you drink that in your coffee?
Yeah, so I have from Four Sigmatic. I just find that it's a good brand. I'm not affiliated with them. So I just mix it in the coffee, or I'll just have it like I don't have coffee in the afternoon, so I'll have that in like as a coffee replacement. And you actually can like feel neurologically sometimes like a different shift and change as well. So it does. I find it personally works really really well. I know a lot of people who are big fans as well.
Wonderful. Thank you
Mhm.
so much. And thank you for being on Successful with ADHD.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Such a pleasure to come on and share. And yeah, just hope everyone realizes life is here to be beautiful and joy, and there are great tools out there. So I hope this helped.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Successful with ADHD. I hope it helped you on your journey. And if you need any additional support for you or a loved one with ADHD, feel free to reach out to us at coachingwithbrooke.com and all social media platforms at Coaching with Brooke. And remember, it's Brooke with an E. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.